Lyra's heart pounded in her chest as she crept through the dim corridors of the research facility. Every step she took echoed softly against the cold metal walls, and every shadow seemed to stretch out, ready to catch her. She had to escape. She had no other choice. For years, she had lived among her people, performing experiments on the humans they had captured. She had learned their strengths, their weaknesses, and most importantly, she had learned that her own species underestimated them. The humans were not weak. They were not mere subjects. They were alive, clever, and dangerous in ways her people could not understand. She pressed her back against the wall, listening to the distant hum of the security systems. Guards patrolled the corridors in predictable patterns, but the alarms had been tripped earlier. And now every step could betray her. Her claws, small and delicate, flexed involuntarily, and she had to take a deep breath to calm herself. Lyra had always been careful, meticulous, but the desperation to leave was stronger than any caution. The secrets she carried were worth more than her life, because if her people discovered what she knew about the humans, she would not be forgiven. Ahead, the corridor split into two paths. One led to the inner laboratories where the humans were kept, and the other led to the outer gates, the doors that could open to freedom. Lyra's choice was obvious. She moved silently, feeling the pulse of fear and adrenaline in her veins. Every sense was alert. She could hear the faint clicking of guards' boots, the soft whir of cameras rotating in their mounts, and the occasional electrical spark from the systems that powered the facility. As she turned a corner, a shadow flickered in the corner of her vision. Lyra froze. Her mind raced through the possibilities. A guard? A drone? A human who had managed to escape? She strained her eyes in the dim light. Then she saw him. A human. Standing there calmly, as if he had been waiting for her. His posture was relaxed, his eyes bright and curious, and there was something in the way he looked at her that made her pause. He did not flinch. He did not run. He simply stood there, calm, confident, and different. Lyra's mind struggled to process what she was seeing. Humans were supposed to be scared, weak, and predictable. They were supposed to follow instructions, survive only with help. But this one, he radiated strength and awareness. For a moment, she felt an unfamiliar sensation, a mixture of fear and fascination. Who was he? How had he gotten here? And why did he seem so human? The human tilted his head slightly, as if acknowledging her presence. Lyra instinctively stepped back, but there was nowhere to go. She had reached the junction of the corridors, and the gates to freedom were only a few meters away. The alarms still blared faintly in the distance. If she didn't move, she would be caught. And yet, she could not tear her eyes away from the human. He took a single step forward, and she froze again. But then, instead of attacking or retreating, he raised his hands slightly, palms outward. The gesture was simple, almost childish, yet somehow it conveyed a message. I am not here to hurt you. Lyra hesitated, weighing her options. She could run, ignoring him entirely, but something in his eyes made her stop. There was a strength there, a certainty that she had never seen in a human before. Without thinking, she nodded once, and the human motioned toward the path leading to the outer gates. It was subtle, almost invisible, but Lyra understood. He was showing her a way to escape. She followed him, moving as quietly as possible. Every shadow was a threat, every sound a potential alarm. But the human moved with an ease that seemed impossible. He anticipated dangers she hadn't even noticed. The sensors embedded in the walls, the pressure plates on the floor, the silent turrets that could fire at a moment's notice. Each time, he led her safely past, and Lyra's admiration grew. Humans were clever, yes, but this one was extraordinary. As they moved, Lyra felt her mind racing. She had always believed humans were fragile, limited, incapable of real ingenuity. But this one, he defied all expectations. She realized that the stories her people told were lies, designed to keep their scientists obedient and their captives under control. Humans were not just survivors, they were problem solvers, fighters, and something more. They inspired courage in those around them. The corridors twisted and turned, leading them through areas Lyra had never dared to enter. She recognized the labs where humans were kept, the storage rooms filled with alien equipment, and the offices where the scientists plotted their experiments. Every place they passed, Lyra noticed how effortlessly the human adapted. He touched nothing he shouldn't, avoided every trap, and yet moved as if the facility itself were guiding him. It was as if he could see the invisible lines of danger and walk between them with perfect balance. At one point, a pair of guards rounded a corner, their attention caught by a flickering light. Lyra froze, but the human did not. With a quick glance, he grabbed a small device from a nearby panel and pressed a button. A soft pulse of light flashed across the corridor, and the guards suddenly stumbled, their vision disrupted. Before they could recover, the human had pulled Lyra along a side corridor, disappearing into the shadows. Lyra's heart raced, not just from fear, but from exhilaration. Humans were remarkable. Finally, they reached the outer gates. Beyond them stretched a barren wasteland, harsh and unforgiving, but free. Lyra could see the sky, tinged with the colors of a distant sunset, and for the first time in her life, she felt a glimmer of hope. She turned to thank the human, but he said nothing. He simply pointed toward the horizon, and she understood. There was more to survival than escaping one facility. There was a world out there, full of challenges, full of dangers, but also full of possibilities. Lyra's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. She had lived in fear, believing humans were weak. She had worked in a place where cruelty was routine, where the strong controlled the weak, and where she had been complicit. But now, standing next to this human, she realized how wrong she had been. Humans were more than she had ever imagined. Their strength was not just physical, it was mental, emotional, and perhaps even spiritual. They adapted, they learned, and they inspired others to rise with them. The human finally spoke, his voice calm and steady. Simple words in a language Lyra could understand thanks to a translator she had kept hidden for emergencies. "Come," he said. "The world is bigger than this place. There's more to see, more to learn, more to live." Lyra nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She had tried to escape alone countless times before, and each attempt had ended in failure or capture. But now, with this human beside her, she felt something she had never felt. Confidence. Not arrogance, not bravado, but the quiet certainty that they could face whatever came next together. The wind blew across the wasteland as they stepped outside. The barren ground stretched for miles, dotted with jagged rocks and strange vegetation. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows across the landscape. Lyra took a deep breath, letting the fresh air fill her lungs. For the first time, she felt free. And yet, she also felt the weight of responsibility. The humans in the facility, the knowledge she carried, the choices she would have to make, none of it could be ignored. As they walked, the human glanced at her, and she realized he was not just a guide, he was a teacher. Every step, every movement, every decision he made was a lesson. Lyra began to understand that escape was only the beginning. Survival, freedom, and growth required more than cunning or speed. It required vision, courage, and trust. And humans, she realized, had all of these qualities in abundance. The sun dipped lower, turning the sky into shades of orange and pink. Lyra felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time, she did not feel like a traitor or a captive. She felt like an explorer, a learner, a being capable of change. The human walked beside her without speaking, but his presence was enough. She could feel the energy, the determination, and the resilience radiating from him. She knew without a doubt that humans were something her people could never fully understand, and that perhaps in understanding them, she could discover a new way to live herself. As night began to fall, Lyra and the human found shelter in a small cave at the edge of a rocky plateau. The stars emerged one by one, bright and distant, and she felt the vastness of the universe pressing against her. It was humbling, terrifying, and exhilarating all at once. She realized that escaping the facility was only the first step. Beyond this wasteland lay countless dangers, unknown worlds, and opportunities that could change the fate of humans and aliens alike. Lyra lay down beside the human, her mind racing, but for the first time, she slept without fear. She had escaped. She had survived. And she had glimpsed something greater than herself, something that humans carried in their hearts and minds, the unyielding spirit to face impossible odds and prevail. When she woke, the sun was rising, painting the landscape in soft gold. The human was already on his feet, scanning the horizon. Lyra rose and followed, feeling the strength within her grow with each step. She knew the path ahead would be difficult, filled with dangers and uncertainty, but she also knew that she was no longer alone. Together, they would face whatever came next. And somewhere deep inside, Lyra felt a spark of hope, a belief that humans were not just survivors. They were a force, a light, a promise of something better. And she was ready to follow that light, wherever it might lead. The morning sun climbed higher, painting the rocky wasteland in warm hues. Lyra followed the human as he moved with an ease that seemed impossible. Every step he took was precise, every glance calculated. She tried to match his rhythm, but her alien body was still tense, still untrained for this kind of freedom. Her people had taught her to obey rules, to move carefully under orders, to rely on technology rather than instincts. But the human relied on nothing but his own mind and senses, and he thrived in ways Lyra had never imagined. They walked for hours across the barren terrain. Small stones crunched underfoot, and the wind whipped through the jagged cliffs, carrying the scent of dust and distant water. Lyra's eyes darted constantly, scanning for danger. Predators were unlikely in this part of the world, but she could not help herself. She had been conditioned to fear everything, to anticipate ambushes and traps. The human, however, walked as if the land itself welcomed him. He paused occasionally, his eyes scanning the horizon, and without a word, he would gesture her forward, guiding her over uneven ground, around sudden drops, and past hidden fissures. As they moved, Lyra's mind kept returning to the humans she had studied in the facility. They had been treated as weak, expendable. Yet here was one who could survive without weapons, without training, and without fear. She wondered how much her species had underestimated them, and how many of her own people's rules and beliefs were simply lies meant to control the mind. By midday, they reached a small valley where a shallow stream ran. The water glinted under the sun, and Lyra's throat felt dry from the long walk. The human knelt beside the stream and drank with ease, then gestured for her to do the same. She knelt cautiously, aware of her movements, and drank, letting the cool water refresh her parched throat. The simple act of survival, done without fear or hesitation, seemed to strengthen her resolve. Humans, she realized, thrived because they did not overthink survival. They adapted. "Why are you helping me?" Lyra finally asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. She had been holding the question for hours, unable to ignore it any longer. The human looked at her, calm and steady. He did not answer in words at first. Instead, he pointed ahead, toward a ridge that rose sharply from the valley. The gesture was simple, yet it carried meaning. Keep moving. Lyra nodded, understanding that trust was part of survival. Humans survived, not only because of their strength or intelligence, but because they worked together and trusted each other when it mattered most. The climb was steep, and Lyra's limbs ached. Rocks shifted under her weight, forcing her to slow her pace. The human moved ahead with ease, turning occasionally to guide her, his presence reassuring even in silence. As they reached the top, a breathtaking view unfolded before them. The wasteland stretched endlessly, broken only by distant mountains and the faint glimmer of water in the valleys below. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. For the first time, she felt the vastness of the world, and with it, a sense of possibility. Humans. They are stronger than we believe, she murmured, almost to herself. The human finally spoke. We survive, he said simply. Not because we are the strongest, but because we do not give up. Lyra considered his words. She had spent her life believing strength came from control, from technology, from following orders, but this human had shown her something different. Strength was not control, it was courage. It was adaptability. It was the refusal to be broken, even in impossible circumstances. As the day wore on, they continued their journey. Lyra began to notice patterns in the human's behavior. He observed the terrain carefully, choosing paths that avoided danger. He listened to the sounds of the wind, the movement of rocks, the calls of distant creatures. His mind seemed to work constantly, assessing, calculating, predicting. Every decision he made increased their chances of survival. She realized that humans had evolved not just to endure, but to anticipate and overcome challenges. When night fell, they made camp in a small cave hidden beneath an overhang of rock. The stars emerged one by one, painting the sky with distant points of light. Lyra sat quietly, her mind racing with thoughts and questions. The human tended a small fire, its warmth comforting in the cold night air. She realized that she had not expected companionship. She had been alone in her escape attempts, relying only on her own skills. But here, with the human beside her, she felt a sense of security she had never known. Humans did not just survive, they inspired trust and cooperation, even in strangers. I don't understand, Lyra admitted softly. Why risk yourself to help me? Humans are weak compared to my people. You should run, hide, survive alone. The human smiled faintly, a simple, unassuming expression. We survive together, he said. Alone, it is difficult. Together, we can overcome more. Lyra reflected on this. Her species believed in individuality above all. Cooperation was a tool, not a principle. But humans thrived on unity. They understood that survival was not only about individual strength, but about helping and protecting others. In that simple idea, she saw a kind of power her people could never comprehend. The night passed slowly. Lyra struggled to sleep, her mind full of thoughts about the humans she had studied, the lies her species had taught her, and the path she now faced. By dawn, the human was already on his feet, scanning the horizon as if reading the world like a book. Lyra rose, feeling the energy of the new day. She had escaped the facility, but survival was just beginning. The real challenge lay ahead. Their journey continued through harsh landscapes, rocky plains, narrow canyons, and dry riverbeds. Each obstacle tested Lyra's endurance and ingenuity. The human, however, moved through it all with a quiet confidence that never faltered. He found paths where none seemed to exist, avoided hazards that would have trapped even the most experienced alien, and remained calm under every stress. Lyra began to see that survival was not merely about strength or speed. It was about awareness, creativity, and resilience. During one particularly difficult climb up a steep canyon wall, Lyra slipped. Her claws dug into the rock, but her grip was tenuous. Panic surged, and she felt herself sliding downward. The human's hand shot out, steady and firm, gripping her arm and pulling her to safety. She gasped, looking up at him, and for the first time, she felt a wave of gratitude and trust she had never experienced. Humans, she realized, were not just survivors. They were protectors, willing to act even when danger threatened them. As they reached the canyon's rim, the human pointed to the distance. A large plateau stretched ahead, and on its edge, a structure loomed, tall, metallic, and alien. Lyra recognized it instantly. It was another facility, smaller than the one she had escaped, but likely filled with the same experiments and dangers. Fear prickled at her mind, but the human did not hesitate. He began moving toward it with purpose, and she followed, understanding that humans did not flee challenges. They confronted them. By midday, they approached the facility. It was heavily guarded, with patrols, drones, and energy barriers. Lyra's mind raced. Her species would have avoided it, believing themselves too small, too weak, too fragile to succeed. But the human did not hesitate. He scanned the area, observed the patterns, and then began moving with precision. He directed Lyra to hide, to watch, and to learn. Every decision was deliberate, every movement calculated. "Observe," he said quietly. "Humans survive by seeing what others cannot see." Lyra watched in awe as the human navigated the defenses. He disabled sensors with improvised tools, created distractions using small devices he fashioned from scraps, and moved through the barriers as if they were invisible. Lyra realized that humans were not limited by rules. They understood the principles behind the rules and adapted to overcome them. It was intelligence in motion, a combination of courage, creativity, and instinct. Finally, they reached the edge of the facility, where human captives were held. Lyra's heart sank. She had hoped some might have escaped, but the prisoners looked weak, frightened, and hopeless. The human did not hesitate. He gestured to her, instructing her to open the gates. Lyra's hands shook as she worked, but the human's calm presence steadied her. Together, they unlocked the barriers, freeing the humans one by one. The captives stared at them, disbelief and hope mingling in their eyes. Lyra saw the same spark in them she had seen in the human who had saved her, a determination to survive, to fight, to adapt. They moved together, humans and Lyra following the human's lead, escaping into the wasteland beyond the facility. As they reached safety, Lyra realized the truth she had been avoiding. Humans were extraordinary. They were not weak. They were not simple. They were ingenious, courageous, and inspiring. They thrived, not because they were the strongest or the fastest, but because they refused to be broken, because they adapted, and because they worked together. By nightfall, the group had found shelter in a hidden valley. Lyra sat beside the human who had first appeared to her, her mind filled with questions, plans, and newfound hope. The humans looked to him with trust, and she began to understand that survival was not just about escaping, it was about leading, protecting, and inspiring others. Lyra felt a strange sense of belonging. She had escaped her past, survived her fears, and discovered a truth she could no longer ignore. Humans were not just survivors. They were a force, a light in the darkness, a reminder that courage, creativity, and unity could overcome even the greatest challenges. And as she looked at the human beside her, calm and confident, she knew that the journey was only beginning. Together, they would face dangers she could not yet imagine, explore the vast world beyond, and perhaps change the fate of humans and aliens alike. The stars shone above, bright and distant, and Lyra felt the strength of possibility. The human beside her did not speak, but his presence said everything. Humans thrived because they faced the impossible, because they adapted, and because they refused to give up. Lyra had learned that lesson, and she would carry it with her always. The next morning, the valley glimmered under the rising sun. Lyra stirred as the warmth of the sunlight touched her scales, her thoughts heavy with the events of the past days. She had escaped the facility, survived alongside a human, and witnessed the incredible abilities of humans firsthand. But now, sitting among the group of newly freed humans, she felt a sense of responsibility she had never experienced before. She was no longer an observer. She was part of something bigger. The human who had first appeared to her stood nearby, scanning the horizon with an intensity that made Lyra feel both comforted and challenged. His name, she had learned, was Marcus. There was no arrogance in him, only quiet strength. He moved with purpose, not just surviving, but thinking ahead, planning for what came next. Lyra realized that survival alone would not be enough. They needed a plan, a strategy, a way to protect themselves and the humans who now relied on them. She rose slowly, joining Marcus as he spoke quietly to the group. His words were calm but firm, filled with clarity and logic that demanded attention. "We cannot stay here," he said. "They will come looking. They will track the humans. We need to move, to find safety and to prepare." Lyra nodded. She had expected fear, chaos, or hesitation, but the humans listened, absorbing his guidance. She realized that leadership was not just about power. It was about inspiring trust and action. Marcus had both, and the humans responded without hesitation. Lyra felt a spark of admiration. Humans were not only strong and clever, but they were capable of unity in ways her species often lacked. The group began to move through the rocky terrain, following Marcus and Lyra as she guided them through paths she had learned from the maps of her people. Every step required caution. Sensors and patrols from the alien facilities could still be nearby, and the landscape itself was unforgiving. Lyra found herself relying not only on her knowledge of the terrain, but also on the human's instincts. Marcus could sense danger before it became visible, anticipate challenges, and improvise solutions faster than she could imagine. As they crossed a narrow ridge, a sudden sound echoed across the valley. Lyra froze. Her heart raced as she scanned the surroundings. Dust swirled in the distance, and figures emerged, alien patrols moving swiftly toward them. She felt the familiar pang of fear, but Marcus did not hesitate. He raised a hand, signaling the group to split and find cover. He moved like a shadow, quick and precise, guiding Lyra and others behind rocks and ledges, avoiding sight lines and positioning them where they could observe the patrol without being seen. Lyra watched in awe as Marcus orchestrated their movements. He used the terrain, shadows, and even the patrol's assumptions against them. Humans, she realized, thrived not by brute strength alone, but by thinking ahead, adapting quickly, and staying calm under pressure. Every step was a lesson in ingenuity and courage. Hours later, when the patrols had passed, Lyra and the group found a secluded canyon to rest. The humans shared food and water, their spirits cautious but resilient. Lyra observed them carefully, noting the same spark of determination she had seen in Marcus. Even those who were weak or frightened displayed small acts of bravery, sharing rations, helping one another climb difficult paths, or simply encouraging their peers. Humans inspired action through example, not coercion. Lyra found herself learning from them, her understanding of strength and leadership reshaping with every passing hour. That night, as the group rested, Marcus spoke to Lyra privately. "Your people underestimated us," he said quietly. "They think fear and control are enough to dominate. But humans, we adapt. We improvise. We find ways when none seem to exist. And now, with your knowledge, we can do more than survive. We can fight back." Lyra's mind raced. She had known her people were cruel, but she had never imagined the scale of their arrogance. They believed humans were nothing more than test subjects. incapable of real thought or strategy. Yet here she was, witnessing a human outmaneuver entire patrols and inspire a group of frightened captives to act with courage. Her loyalty to her species wavered. Could she continue to serve them after seeing the truth? The following days were a mixture of travel, training, and planning. Lyra guided the humans through rough terrain, teaching them to use natural shelters, avoid hazards, and anticipate alien patrols. In return, she learned from Marcus. He taught the group to move quietly but efficiently, to improvise tools and weapons from simple resources, and to trust one another in life-and-death situations. Lyra noticed a growing sense of camaraderie. Humans thrived on cooperation, and this cooperation created strength far beyond what any individual could achieve. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Marcus gathered the group for a discussion. "We cannot just run forever," he said. "We need to stop them at their source. We need to show that humans cannot be controlled, that we are not weak, and that we will fight for our freedom. This will be dangerous, but together, we can succeed." Lyra felt a thrill of fear and excitement. The humans nodded in agreement, some wide-eyed but resolute. They were ready to act, to take control of their destiny. Lyra realized that she had been waiting for this moment her whole life, the chance to make a real difference, to fight for those who could not fight for themselves. The group moved under cover of darkness toward the alien facility. Marcus led with confidence, his senses alert to every movement, sound, and shadow. Lyra guided the humans along less traveled paths, using knowledge of patrol patterns and weak points in the defenses. The facility loomed ahead, metallic and imposing, but Lyra no longer felt fear. She felt purpose, she felt determination, and she felt the strength of humans beside her. As they approached the perimeter, they encountered a patrol. Lyra's instincts screamed at her to flee, but Marcus acted without hesitation. Using clever distractions and improvised tools, he incapacitated the guards quietly, allowing the group to slip past unnoticed. Lyra marveled at his skill. Humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and fearless in ways her species could never anticipate. Inside the facility, the group encountered locked doors, energy barriers, and complex systems designed to prevent escape. Lyra's knowledge of the technology allowed them to bypass many obstacles, but Marcus's intuition and quick thinking solved problems she had never imagined could be solved in real time. Together, they moved through the halls with efficiency and purpose, freeing humans and guiding them to safety. Each rescue was a small victory, a demonstration of human courage and ingenuity. Lyra began to feel a bond with the humans she had once studied as subjects. She saw their individuality, their creativity, and their resilience. They were not weak. They were not fragile. They were extraordinary. And they were capable of more than her people had ever imagined. At one point, Lyra and Marcus reached a central control room. Screens displayed the movements of alien patrols, the location of captive humans, and the layout of the facility. Lyra's heart raced as she realized the potential of this knowledge. With Marcus's guidance, they could coordinate the entire rescue operation, using strategy, timing, and improvisation to maximize their chances of success. The night passed with careful planning. Marcus divided the humans into small teams, each with specific tasks. Lyra worked with him, coordinating movements, disabling security systems, and providing guidance. She realized that humans thrived not just on courage, but on planning, adaptability, and mutual trust. They could face impossible odds because they faced them together, each individual contributing their unique skills to the greater goal. When the operation began at dawn, Lyra felt a surge of determination. The facility was heavily guarded, but the humans moved with precision and confidence. Marcus led the charge, using distractions, stealth, and ingenuity to neutralize threats. Lyra followed, guiding teams, opening doors and helping humans escape. Every obstacle was met with creativity and courage. The humans adapted to each new challenge, turning the facility's technology against their oppressors, and slowly, systematically, they reclaimed freedom. By midday, the facility was in chaos. Guards scrambled to respond, but the humans anticipated their moves. Lyra watched in awe as humans coordinated effortlessly, improvising strategies on the spot and overcoming every challenge. She felt pride swelling in her chest, not just for their courage, but for their humanity. Humans thrived not because of strength alone, but because of determination, intelligence, and unity. Finally, the central holding area was reached. Lyra and Marcus opened the doors, freeing the last of the captives. Cheers erupted, echoing through the facility's halls. The humans had succeeded, against overwhelming odds, by relying on each other, on their ingenuity, and on their refusal to be defeated. Lyra felt a sense of triumph unlike anything she had ever experienced. Humans were extraordinary. They were not merely survivors. They were heroes. As the group emerged from the facility, Lyra looked at Marcus. He smiled faintly, the calm strength that had guided them throughout the journey still present. She realized that humans were not defined by fear or weakness. They were defined by courage, by creativity, and by the ability to inspire others. And she was proud to stand among them, no longer an observer, but a participant in something remarkable. The sun rose higher, casting light on the liberated humans and the facility they had conquered. Lyra felt a sense of purpose she had never known. The humans had shown her the meaning of true strength, the kind that comes not from domination, but from unity, intelligence, and the unyielding will to survive. And as she stood beside Marcus, looking out over the horizon, she knew their journey was far from over. The humans had proven themselves, but the world was vast, filled with dangers and challenges yet to come. Together, they would face whatever lay ahead, guided by courage, ingenuity, and the extraordinary spirit that defined humanity. Lyra had found her place, not just in the world, but among humans who inspired hope, courage, and determination. She knew that the battle was only the beginning, and that the lessons she had learned would guide her and humanity toward a future defined not by fear, but by the unbreakable spirit to endure, adapt, and triumph. The sun rose over the rocky horizon, casting long shadows across the liberated humans as they prepared for what lay ahead. Lyra stood beside Marcus, her mind racing with the plan they had spent the night refining. The facility they had escaped from was only one of many. Others existed, larger, more fortified, and still holding humans captive. Marcus's strategy was simple yet daring: strike at the heart of their oppressors and show that humans were not weak. Lyra felt a surge of determination. She had learned so much from the humans she had once studied, from their courage and ingenuity. Now she was part of their strength, a guide and ally. Every step of the plan relied on her knowledge of alien technology and facility layouts, and every move depended on the humans' ability to adapt, improvise, and act with courage. The combination was powerful, stronger than anything her species had anticipated. The group moved quietly across the rugged terrain, each person carrying what little supplies they could manage. Marcus led the way, scanning the horizon for patrols and obstacles, while Lyra ensured the humans followed safely. Every movement was deliberate. Humans were not reckless. They were resourceful, calculating, and observant. Lyra marveled at their skill. Her people had believed that humans could only survive through luck or chance. She now knew the truth. Humans survived because they never stopped thinking, never stopped learning, and never stopped acting. By midday, the facility loomed ahead, a massive structure of metal and energy barriers. Lyra's pulse quickened. The size of it was intimidating, but she no longer felt fear. Humans thrived when others doubted them. Marcus motioned for the group to take cover behind jagged rocks and hidden ledges. He surveyed the patrols, the movement of guards, and the positions of cameras and energy barriers. Every detail mattered. Lyra whispered to him, "We can use the ventilation shafts and emergency corridors. It will be faster and less guarded." Marcus nodded. "Good. Lead the way, but be ready. They will react." The group moved through shadows and hidden passages, guided by Lyra's knowledge and Marcus's intuition. Every step was a test of courage, adaptability, and trust. The humans followed without hesitation, some gripping improvised tools, others carrying small devices that Marcus had crafted to disrupt security systems. Lyra realized that humans thrived not only on strength, but on creativity, the ability to turn the impossible into the achievable. They reached the central courtyard of the facility, where energy barriers pulsed and guards patrolled in predictable patterns. Lyra felt a twinge of fear, but Marcus's calm presence steadied her. He gestured to small rocks and debris, showing her how to create distractions. With precise timing, they disabled barriers, tripped sensors, and led the humans through hidden paths. Every challenge was met with ingenuity and courage. Lyra realized that humans did not see obstacles, they saw opportunities. As they moved deeper into the facility, they encountered the first major obstacle, a security checkpoint with armed guards and energy fields. Lyra's mind raced. This was impossible to pass without detection, but Marcus did not hesitate. He scanned the area, noting the guards' movements and the timing of the energy fields. Then he gestured to the humans. They formed small teams, each with a specific task. Some created diversions, others disabled systems, and a few slipped through unseen. Lyra followed the plan, guiding the humans and improvising when unexpected challenges arose. The operation was tense, but the humans remained calm. Lyra watched in awe as they adapted to each situation, thinking on their feet, using their environment, and relying on one another. They were not weak. They were extraordinary. Every success reinforced Lyra's belief in humanity. Their courage, intelligence, and unity were unmatched. Finally, they reached the holding chambers where hundreds of humans were kept. Lyra's heart pounded as she opened the doors. Fear and hope mingled on the faces of the captives. Marcus stepped forward, his calm presence reassuring. "You are free," he said simply. "Follow us and trust each other. We will get you out." The humans moved as one, guided by Marcus and Lyra. They navigated the corridors, bypassed security systems, and avoided patrols with precision and courage. Every step was a lesson in adaptability. Lyra realized that humans thrived not because of strength alone, but because of their willingness to act together, to learn quickly, and to inspire courage in one another. As they approached the facility's exit, alarms blared. Guards scrambled to respond, but the humans did not panic. They adapted instantly, using Marcus's guidance and their own ingenuity to evade capture. Lyra moved among them, guiding, helping, and protecting. She felt a sense of pride she had never known. Humans were not merely survivors, they were heroes. Outside, the group emerged into the open wasteland. The sun blazed overhead, and Lyra felt the freedom in every breath. The facility was behind them, but their journey was far from over. Marcus turned to her. "We did it," he said, his calm voice steady. "But this is only the beginning. Humans will not be oppressed again, not if we can help it." Lyra nodded. She had seen the strength of humans, their ability to adapt, survive, and inspire. She had learned that true power did not come from domination or fear, but from courage, creativity, and unity. The humans had proven themselves, and she was proud to stand beside them. As they moved toward the horizon, Lyra realized that her life had changed forever. She had escaped the lies of her people, witnessed the extraordinary abilities of humans, and joined a group that thrived on courage and ingenuity. The future was uncertain, but she no longer feared it. With humans beside her, she felt ready to face whatever challenges awaited. The stars began to appear in the evening sky as the group made camp in a hidden valley. Lyra watched Marcus instruct the humans on planning, adaptation, and cooperation. She understood now that survival was not just about escaping danger. It was about thinking ahead, learning from mistakes, and inspiring others to rise. Humans were extraordinary because they never gave up. That night, as Lyra lay under the stars, she reflected on everything she had seen. Her species had believed humans were weak, incapable, and simple. But she knew the truth. Humans thrived because of their courage, intelligence, creativity, and unity. They faced impossible odds and triumphed, not through brute force, but through determination and adaptability. Lyra felt a deep sense of purpose. She had learned the human way, to survive, adapt, and fight not just for oneself but for others. She had seen firsthand how humans turned fear into courage, weakness into strength, and challenges into opportunities. And she had become part of that strength, guiding and supporting them, learning from them, and growing alongside them. The following days were filled with preparation and training. Marcus led the humans in strategies to defend themselves and take action against other facilities. Lyra shared her knowledge of alien technology, teaching the humans how to bypass defenses and navigate complex systems. Together, they became a team, a force capable of facing even the most dangerous challenges. As the sun set on the fourth day, Marcus gathered the group. "We have shown what humans are capable of," he said. "We have freed many, but there are still more out there. We will continue, and we will not stop until all humans are safe. This is our strength, our courage, our creativity, and our unity." Lyra looked around at the humans she had come to admire. She saw fear replaced with determination, weakness replaced with courage, and despair replaced with hope. Humans had survived against impossible odds, and they would continue to thrive, inspire, and overcome. She realized that her journey had taught her more than survival. It had taught her the meaning of courage, the power of unity, and the extraordinary potential of humans. She had escaped her past, joined a force greater than herself, and discovered a truth that could change everything. Humans were not weak, they were unstoppable. And as she stood beside Marcus, watching the group prepare for the next mission, Lyra felt a sense of hope and pride she had never known. Together, they would continue to face challenges, overcome dangers, and prove that humans, even against the most powerful forces, could survive, thrive, and triumph. The stars shone bright above, and Lyra understood that the future was theirs to shape. With humans at her side, she knew that anything was possible. The journey was far from over, but she was ready. They were ready. Humanity had triumphed, and Lyra was part of it. The wind whispered through the valley, carrying with it the promise of new adventures, challenges, and victories. And as the humans looked to the horizon, Lyra knew one thing for certain. They would face whatever came next together, and nothing would stop them. The journey of survival, courage, and humanity had reached a new beginning. Lyra had found her purpose, and humans had proven once again that they were more than survivors. They were a force of hope, ingenuity, and unyielding spirit, capable of changing the fate of the galaxy itself.